Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we experience life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Adkins Jr., author, teacher, speaker, preacher, podcast host, everything, lifelong learner. I am just excited to be in this conversation. We have Dr. Tim Newman with us today. And Dr. Tim Newman, welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Randy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me, being able to speak to the Produce on Purpose community. We've been trying to do this for a while, but finally, I think all the stars have aligned up.
Yeah, I think we finally got it lined up, and we're gonna jump on in and just kind of talk about your journey and where you've come from. And so, Dr. Newman, with nearly 3 decades of experience in sports management and athletic training, you've had an incredible journey. And what I understand, what was that first thing that sparked your passion for combining education and sports?
Oh, that goes back to even further than I've ever really talked about with most people. So it goes back to really when I was in high school. I had gotten injured, and it's probably my junior year of high school. And at that time, so this is back in the mid-'80s, I got injured and went to the doctor, and they said, you have to go see the athletic trainer. And so, I don't know how old you are, but back then, athletic trainer, what the heck is that? Nobody even knew what that was at the time. And when I went and got the treatment and did the rehab, I said, wow, this is what I want to do. And I want to do it, for athletes like me. And then as I got older, I realized and learned some things. The whole idea of being an athletic trainer and teaching in high school or teaching on the college level, what I realized is if I wanted to have a family, and if I wanted to stay married, and if I wanted to be part of my kids' lives, for me, that wasn't going to work. And so that's how
Right.
that's kind of how I transitioned over to the business aspect of sport.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. That's a really, it is like almost a natural progression. And then you're putting the most important priorities for your life in place as you were kind of going through there. I've seen that you've done some global type work and have gone to diverse places like Botswana and Malaysia and Thailand.
Yes.
Have any of those international experiences shaped your perspective on sports management and education?
Oh, phenomenally. And I'm glad you brought that up, Randy. Just this past week, I got a LinkedIn message, and I've been communicating with this gentleman for years, but it's been 30 years since I've seen him. He was the person who my contact was when I went to Botswana, and he sent me a picture, and it's probably one of my favorite pictures of me of all time. And it's of me and him. We're sitting in the airport in Botswana, and I'm getting ready to come back to the States, and we're having a bite to eat and a beer, just the two of us, and talking and catching up. And it's those, number one, to me, everything is about the relationships and the people that you meet and the friendships and those types of things. But one of the things that I've learned, throughout my career, and even doing the podcast and being a host on a podcast and being a guest on a podcast like this, doesn't matter where you are in the world, we're all dealing with the same things. Mm-hmm. We all want good relationships. We all want, to be good people. We all want to help others. But we're all dealing with the same issues. And so they're really, it's more about how can we move things forward. And I just go back to Botswana for a second. When I was teaching over there, I was actually teaching a sport marketing course. I was there for 2 weeks. So it was a real intense, time. So we would teach, get up and teach, 8 to 11, have lunch, 1 to 5 teach, have dinner and do those other things. But we taught it wasn't a traditional classroom. It was at that abattoir where they slaughtered cows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was blown away at that. And, some of the things that we take for granted over here in the United States, and you go to other countries that where they don't have, near the resources that we do. The big sport in Botswana is soccer, and they played on fields of dirt. There was no grass. Most of the town kids who we were playing with didn't have shoes, but they had a stadium, and if you went inside their stadium, it would look like maybe a high school stadium, maybe an elite level high school stadium, not necessarily a college type stadium. That's kind of what it was, and that's for their professional athletes. And so, they love sport just like we do. They get excited about it. They want to grow sport. They want to make money from sport. They want to do all the things that we want to do, but they don't necessarily have all the resources that we do. So again, we're all dealing with the same types of things. And then go to Malaysia and Thailand, some of the same things. That's when I was in Thailand, that was when I saw my first international soccer game, and that blew me away.
I can imagine the energy.
Yes, and again, so you think international soccer, but you don't think about the teams that I'm talking about. But it was the same energy. It was Thailand and North Korea playing, and I'm not talking bad about any team anywhere, but watching it was like watching Division III soccer. But this is their elite, and it's great, and the fans were into it. They were chanting. The place was sold out. It was it was international soccer.
Yeah.
And so again, it's all relative to what you're to where you're at. But again, we're all in the same spot. We're all dealing with the same types of things.
Yeah. And so you still have the types of sports manager education that needs to happen in those same places.
Yeah.
I've traveled for different mission trips as well, and one of the things that during my experience, it does let you know that some of the basic necessities that we do take for granted, whether it's road infrastructure, water, clean water, those things are not always available in all countries that we go to. So sometimes there are other things that they're dealing with that also they seem to overcome or seem to be happy with whatever is going on. So that's definitely something that I think expands our minds to say, hey, look, there's really more going on all the time. But like you said, everything is, similar. We're all in similar places. So now you've done, a lot in sports management education. And one of the areas that I love that you talk about is public speaking. So I am a Toastmaster. I've been a Toastmaster for 10 years, and I am always helping to improve my speaking abilities and what I can do to communicate, as well as being a leader. So as the creator of the formula for public speaking, you've developed a step-by-step program to help people improve their speaking skills. What inspired you to create this formula, and what are some of the key principles that you emphasize?
Well, let me start by this. What's the most nervous you've ever been, or the most nervous you've ever seen somebody up on stage, public speaking? Let's start there. What's the most nervous you've ever seen somebody?
I mean, I've seen someone get up and primarily just freeze and then just walk off. That's how afraid that person was.
I wish I did that. I threw up in front of everybody.
Wow.
Yep. Okay. So, go back. I mean, this goes back to when I was in college. I'd been in the military. I've been an athlete, and been a leader of people and been in front. The spotlight never really bothered me at all. But the whole idea of getting up in front of a group of my classmates at the time, for whatever reason, scared me to death. And I'm really good at getting out of what I don't want to do. And so when I went to college, I dropped the class, just dropped it. And it's required. You got to take it. When it came to my senior year, my advisor said, "Tim, if you want to graduate, you have to take the class." So I said, "I guess there's no way I'm getting out of this one." And that's what happened. My very first time in my senior year, standing up in front of the class. And again, understand for the audience, I'm a little bit older, so you got to go back. We had computers, but we didn't really have computers like you see them today. I had an overhead projector with the clear slides with my chicken scratch writing on it. That's what we were using for visuals. So I'm standing at the lectern. I got my notes, and there's a trash can right next to me, and I literally threw up right there. Class got a good laugh about it, which is key. And that was that. I didn't actually present that day because I got out of it. But eventually you got to do it. And so that really was the impetus for me to, number one, become a better communicator, but become a better public speaker. And now, actually, I'm a recovered college professor now. My last semester was my last semester, so I'm not doing it anymore. But if I wanted to be in education, it doesn't really matter what industry you want to get into. You've got to talk to people. You have to be able to communicate with people. So it doesn't really matter what you're going to do. You have to learn to communicate with people. And so that's kind of the long story to where we're leading to this. And so fast forward to COVID, students, the way young professionals communicate and students communicate right now has gotten so bad, and COVID really kind of solidified that. It got even worse. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to stand up in front of a group of people and share information. And so I was spending more time in class talking about soft skills and teaching them soft skills and communication skills than I was teaching them the knowledge that they needed, for their major. Sport marketing, public relations is my background. And so, the whole idea is I don't care how smart you are or what ideas you have. If you can't communicate them, you're not going anywhere.
I agree. And, communication becomes the impetus, and actually it's the difference between that person that I could have, and, I'm in the technical field. I can have two people that have the same technical skill sets and capabilities, but the one who's able to communicate, I'm going to look at and share because they're able to, be in a team, be able to communicate with those that are around them. And it is such an important skill set that I feel has been somewhat lost. And what are some of your thoughts of why that has been lost? And again, I think we've kind of grown up in some of the same eras where, I had to go talk to people. Yeah. I didn't just have a screen in front of me. What are your thoughts?
I think there's a number of things. So when like you said, when you grew up, if you want to go out with somebody, you had to talk to them, right? Yep. I mean, we had phones, but I remember having a rotary dial phone. I don't remember if you remember that or not.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Rotary dial phone with no answer machine, and then we finally got an answer machine, right? But if you wanted something, you either had to go to their house, you had to go meet them somewhere, or they had to return your phone call. And now we're in a society, and I'm not putting all the blame on social media or on technology. I think it's exacerbated it a lot. When you look at people today, especially the younger professionals, because I don't think, I don't want to generalize too much, but I would say people in our generation don't really have as much of a problem of picking up the phone and calling somebody. So like for me, and I did this yesterday. I got a text message. Somebody asked me a question. And I started typing it out, and it was getting kind of long. I said, no, but I'm just going to call them. It's because it's much better than just call them, explain it, and be done with it, as opposed to going back and forth. Yep. And we just pick up the phone and call it and deal with it. But the younger generations, for whatever reason, they don't want to pick up the phone and call. They would rather text, which to me, you lose so much from text messages or emails because you lose connotation, you lose tone, you lose facial expression, you lose body language. So you could type something in an email or type something in a text message, and it's taken in a completely different way than what the sender is meaning it. Yep. And we spend so much time with our face buried in our phone, our face looking at a computer screen, social media, and we're so worried about what other people are saying about us or thinking about us. That is, to me, is what has really exacerbated the communication problems.
Yeah. And so then, body language does make a difference. Being able to cue off of somebody, understanding, when to actually comment or make different moves or conversations or pieces there is important. And of course, being able to disseminate information or share information in a public way that is for the appropriate audience.
Right.
And then, we move into some pieces of emotional intelligence to understand that, hey, is this the right context to share this information? Or how should I be able to share that information? Do you have any tips on how to make sure that we're communicating in a way that is right for that particular audience?
Well, see that you bring up some really good points. To me, the very first thing that needs to be done, and this is part of the formula for public speaking, the very first thing you need to do is look at your audience and determine who that audience is, and learn everything that you possibly can about that audience. Let's step away from being up on a stage for a second. Let's talk about a job interview or a team meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going into a job interview and number one, you don't know who you're interviewing with, you don't know anything about them, you don't know anything about the company, you don't know the history or the philosophy or any of those types of things, I'm just telling you right now, the interview is not going to go well. So you need to you need to do all the research that you can and learn as much as you can about that audience first and foremost, so that you can start to then craft your message based on that audience. And that it's almost like, you wouldn't talk to a fourth grade class the same way that you would talk to a group of professionals. It may be the same information, but you're going to break that information down in a much different way. And, and I use that fourth grade class as an example because I don't know if you know George Torok. He hosts the Your Intended Message podcast. He gave that example on LinkedIn yesterday or the day before about how he went into a class to talk about something, and it was a fourth grade class, and he had to break that information down so that they could understand it. And that was a really good example. One example that I use a lot is I go, come from the sport industry, right? If you're an athletic director and you've got to give 3 different presentations, all in the same information, one to the parents, one to the coaches, and one to the student athletes, you better come up with 3 different ways to share that same information to touch them so that they get the importance of the information that you're ready to share.
So you got to know your audience, and then you need to craft or tailor your message for that particular audience. And I think you just provided a specific nugget there for anyone trying to communicate, pass along information, even in public speaking, to be able to share that information is key. So you ended up from, just sounds like an embarrassing moment in class, to now hosting 2 podcasts.
Yes.
And sounds like it was the Golf Week Amateur Tour and the podcast and Speaking with Confidence.
Yes.
What do you enjoy the most about connecting with your audiences through these shows?
Oh, wow. The people. Oh my gosh, Randy. So I did an interview earlier today, with a player on the Golf Week Amateur Tour, mentally handicapped, and he's a member of our tour. So we run flighted stroke play golf tournaments in 48 markets across the country, and so we've got 6,000 members, and so we have an 18-year-old young man who's mentally handicapped who won his first tournament with us last week, and so talking to him, having that conversation, I mean, that's so inspiring. Right. That's just one example. Talking to you, Randy, with you with the Speaking with Confidence podcast, I've talked to people all over the world. I mean, literally all over the world, and you're connecting with people, and again, it comes back to we're all kind of dealing with the same thing, and how we deal with it, and getting to other perspectives, and those types of things. So to me, it's about the connections with people, and
Yeah.
the friendships, and those types of things. It's, to me, that's just so important.
Yeah, and those connections really do provide greater insights
Mm-hmm.
into living life. I always say it's like a master class every time I get to talk to someone, because I learn something new. I learn something else about life. I learn some way of being able to maybe move about, or tip, or a hack, or something to kind of help out and move along the way. And I understand that now you are you're doing those podcasts, and it sounds like you have international guests that are on
Mm-hmm.
your podcast.
Yeah.
When you're doing those podcasts, from your perspective, what is the biggest thing throughout your journey that has prepared you for this moment to be able to be on these podcasts?
Oh. I think having an open mind. I you know, and I'm going to go down this path a little bit here. I think if we look at where we are in society right now, if you disagree with somebody, it more than likely a lot of times going to end up in an argument, and or yelling and screaming, this, that, and the other thing. And I've always been, you know what, I would much rather listen to what somebody has to say, because number one, I may learn something. Number two, I may be able to share a piece of information with them to help them. I may be able to gain some perspective. Maybe my mind won't be changed. So if we can just be open to listening to other people, and other ideas, and other suggestions, and other ways of doing things, because I can promise you this: just because I do it this way, it doesn't make it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I say this doesn't make that right. And maybe we could all learn something from trying something differently. And to me, I think that's the biggest thing, that all of us can do, is just to have an open mind, and listen with an open mind. Don't listen with an open mind to say, see, I told you he was going to say something dumb, or I told you, we weren't really going to learn anything. Listen with an open mind to have an open mind, and be willing to absorb that and think about it, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, and it sounds like if you set the stage and want to come into any conversation, regardless of, don't come in with preconceived notions. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you are open to learning whatever you are about to have and have a conversation about, and that will, provide you with a way of kind of just moving forward, and also just it broadens your perspective. I
It
love
really does.
broadening the perspective, and providing that kind of exposure in what we do. So we'll move a little bit to your personal life. So you, um, when you're not leading the sports management and you're not empowering people through public speaking, my understanding is you spend time with your wife and your daughters and your grandchildren. How does that and spending time with your family influence you and inspire your work?
Well, and I'm gonna go back to my mom and dad. Growing up, 70s and 80s. You know, the way I remember it was, economically things weren't really good for our country. But what I always remember was my mom and dad were always there. Didn't really matter what was going on, what we had going on. Mom and dad was always there, and that's why, if you go back to what I said earlier, being an athletic trainer in high school or college, and being an educator, there's no way I could be married and be there for my kids. And I said, that's not, for me, that's not what I want. I want to be able to, number one, stay married. Number two, be around my kids, and watch them grow, and sports, and those types of things. And the whole idea, that we need to that I wanted to prioritize, my family, so that when I'm with them, I can be with them. When I'm at work,
Yeah.
I can be at work. But one thing that was brought up to me a couple weeks ago, almost every podcast that I've been on, I've mentioned my family in some way, whether it's my wife, whether it's my kids, whether it's my grandkids. To me, that's what life is really all about. Is your family, and helping people. That's what I do. I threaten my kids at times. I say, one of these days I'm going to stop helping you, but they know that's probably never going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those things. You might be like, yeah, Dad, whatever, or
exactly.
And I think when you have that as one of the top things, and you kind of talked earlier about common themes. We all have families. Everyone has family, regardless of who you are, where you come from, what you are doing. And when you put that as one of your highest priorities, you're gonna work to make sure that that's cultivated, and that, of course, your lifestyle matches, and what you're doing actually aligns with you spending time. I will say, we specifically took time while our children were small, to make sure that we were there. That whether it was the games, or whether it was the dance rehearsals, or whatever it was, we were going to be there to support them as they were growing up, getting their education, getting them the exposure. And now all of our children are adult children, and we got one still in the house, but she's a senior, so she's almost on her way out. But that does give you insight into what you're doing, and kind of making sure you're leading in that way. Yeah. So with your extensive background, you in leadership and sports education, what's some of the leadership lessons that you always strive to pass on to your students and your mentees?
Wow, Randy, that's such a great question. I can go through a lot of things, and one that I think is really important, especially in today's world, is take ownership. Take ownership of what's good. Take ownership of what's not good, what you've done right, what you've done wrong, and give ownership. Give the people that you're leading, that you're charged with helping. Give them the tools that they need to be successful, and give them the freedom to mess up, and tell them that it's okay. That, I think, that's one way that we get better, is by taking chances and actually not succeeding, because we learn from it, and we have that freedom. Wow, it's okay to step outside the box. It's okay to push the envelope a little bit. And as the leader, give them that freedom. Yeah. But you also have to make sure that you take that responsibility too, because if and I go through this, and my wife and I have had this conversation. We do a lot of things work-wise together. As I tell her, my name's on the contract, so no matter what happens, I don't care who if it gets messed up, I got to take responsibility for it. So if you mess it up, don't let me find out that it's messed up from somebody else. Tell me it's messed up, and I'll take care of it. I don't mind doing that. But on the flip side, I always give the praise to this person or that person or this person, because it's more about helping them and giving them that opportunity to go and be successful. I don't need that. I've never wanted it, never needed it. I look at it like this: I'm successful if you're successful, and you're successful, and you're successful. And I would much rather you all be successful than me taking credit for something I probably didn't do anyway.
And I think that is a great sign of leadership. You stated there, the ownership, and making sure that you pass along that ownership, and providing the space and the freedom for those who are there to do their work, but also to fail. And I've always learned this, I think, throughout the process, is if you fail fast and learn from it and keep going. And I sometimes would have issues with our education system, because they tell you got to get it all right up front. And I think it's been pounded into each of us. But in real life, I've learned the greatest lessons when the times when I've failed, but then I learned. And when I learned, I continued to get better. and get better. And it seemed to provide the greatest growth. Have you noticed that same kind of thing in this, both the sports world and also in all of the things that you're leading?
I really have. I really, really have. And let's go back to, I want to give a couple different examples if you don't mind. So when my kids, I'm not a soccer person, but I was coaching, little league soccer, 5 and 6 year olds. And one of the things I would tell them is, I don't care what you do, just do something. Don't, when you're on the field, don't stop and get paralyzed. Whatever, do something. Kick the ball over here, run over there, whatever it is. If it's a good decision, great. If it's a bad decision, you'll learn from it, and we'll talk about it. If it's a no decision, I mean, if it's not neither, then it's neither. But you're not going to learn anything from paralyzing yourself and standing still. Do something. And we can work with everything else. Go out and have fun. Don't stand still. Learn. I mean, move, and we'll figure it out. You're 6 years old. That's to me, that's what youth sports is. Youth sports is, or should be, about having fun and learning things. Not necessarily about the. We'll introduce winning later on down the road, but learn from your mistakes. And if we can teach them that at that age, and then they go into the education system, and they can see, well, okay, maybe we're getting a little bit of mixed messages here, but I'm still going to go ahead and make decisions. I'm not going to let that paralyze me. Yeah. And then you move to the education system, and I'm going to talk about some students here on the college level. One of the things that I really tried to ingrain in the students is, you may not like what I'm telling you to do, but I want you to do it because I want you to learn now. Because if you learn now, the consequences are so much less than if you learned 5 years from now. I would rather you fail this assignment. Okay, Airfinger's quote, fail this assignment, than go out into the world of work and get fired. Because you didn't learn something that I should have taught you over here. And you may not like it. It may be uncomfortable. And we're talking about things like your soft skill type things, things that don't require a lot of thought or energy, showing up on time, being prepared, those types of things. Because what happens if you show up to a job interview late? Well, you're probably not going to even make the interview. What happens if you show up to an airplane late? Well, that airplane is probably gone. If you show up to a cruise ship late, you've definitely missed the boat, literally, right? and so it's some of those things, learn them now, learn them while you're young, because the consequence is minimal, as opposed to learning when you get fired, or when you lose a sale, and that's going to affect your bonus, or that's going to affect some other things. That's why we're here. That's why we're trying to help you and teach you those things now.
The stakes are definitely higher the more time goes on, and I love that for the students. I actually take that up in my household. When my children were under my roof, I was like, I'd rather you cry now about whatever it is than for you to be out there in the world. And if I'm here, I'm here. But if you can do it under the roof of my home, I can promise you're going to be okay.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great lesson for anyone that's going through. Let's go ahead and make the decisions you need to make, take the steps that you need to take. And if there is failure along the way, just know that it's a growth opportunity, and continue moving forward is awesome. Wow, time goes by so quickly. So here on the Produce on Purpose podcast, of course, we loved hearing about how people pursue purposeful work. What does living and leading with purpose mean to you?
That's a really good question. It's helping serving others. That's, in a nutshell. And I joke, again, as much as there's times when I'm done helping you, I'm still going to help you because that's what I do. I don't know how to do anything else. I mean, and sometimes helping you is not necessarily giving you what you want, but what you need. So it's helping and serving others.
And, serving others, I believe, is just like one of those key elements of our life that not only are you giving, but in the end, you're getting back out of that situation because you are serving others and helping them along the way. Well, at this moment, I'm going to ask if you can share if there's one or two things that you want to leave with this audience that they can do today that you want them to do and that would change or transform their lives. What would that be based on our conversation or your life experience?
The very first thing would be to stop worrying about what other people think about you. The fact of the matter is, the reality of it is, they're not thinking about you. So you need to start. You need to start doing what's best for you, and especially from a communication piece, share your message, share your story, because you're the only one that can do that. So put the imposter syndrome, the fear of failure, you don't want to mess up, you don't want to be judged, put all that stuff, throw it away, because that's stuff that we do to ourselves. It's not stuff that anybody else is doing to us. And part of that is social media. Set it aside. That's first and foremost. The second piece is when you're going into a situation where you're going to be talking to other people, prepare. Figure out who the audience is as much as you possibly can, and then start crafting that message, start crafting that story based on who that audience is and what they want to hear or what they want to know about. Those are two easy things that everybody can do, right now. It's to me will really change their outlook on really on life, because it's going to be so much easier to walk through life. It's going to be so much easier to start talking to people. You're going to have a weight lifted off you.
Well, Dr. Tim Newman, thank you so much for the great information and for this great conversation that we've had. How can my audience connect with you, find you, understand a little more about you?
Well, there's two places. You can go to the website at timnewmanspeaks.com. That's easy. The other place is LinkedIn. That's where I talk a lot of professional things. And there's just Tim Newman.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing so much information. I have taken a lot of great information from this conversation, specifically about speaking again, knowing your audience, understanding who you're talking to, making sure that that's going to be something that you go into those conversations with and understand that with serving is important, that we serve others that are around us, and that making sure that we're giving out and sharing that information on a consistent basis. And of course, making sure that we don't worry about what other people think about us, that we actually do what we're supposed to do. And of course, I'm a proponent of that because my book says produce on purpose, experience life being the real you. That means that if you're authentic, if you understand who you are, if you are standing on that, then you don't have to worry about what anybody else is saying or doing to you. And I want to share with all of our audience that most of all, that as you're being the real you, that you produce on purpose.